what are the things we need to do in life that bring us back into the flow, keep us in that river, which is where we're most creative, where we're most aligned.
It's hard to believe, but we've made it to the final episode of Season 1 of Art Estate. Since launching in January, this podcast has become more than I ever could have imagined. We've shared vulnerable moments, honest conversations, and plenty of laughter with creatives from all walks of life. And whether this is your first time tuning in or you've been here from the start, I just want to say thank you. This community means everything to me, and I'm already excited for what's coming next. We'll be taking a break over the summer and returning in September with a brand new season of Art Estate, filled with more inspiring voices, practical wisdom, and creative truth-telling. But before we sign off, I have one more conversation that feels like the perfect way to close out the season, and it's with Jonathan Zoeteman. Jonathan is a photographer, writer, and creative entrepreneur based in Calgary. He's a Canon ambassador, co-founder of the creative community Socality, and the visionary behind House A31, a hub for founders and artists alike. In this episode, we talk about his journey from skateboarder with a film camera to community builder and full-time creative. He shares his thoughts on burnout, the power of staying in creative flow, writing on Substack, and the importance of showing up for the long game. This conversation is thoughtful, generous, and grounded, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Let's dive in. How about before we get started, do you want to just share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those like multi-hyphenate like creatives that has my finger in probably way like too many pies, wearing too many hats all the time. So by default, that often makes it hard to introduce myself. But in a kind of one sentence, I'm a photographer, I'm a writer, and I'm a creative entrepreneur based out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. On the photography front, I'm a Canon ambassador. I get to do a lot of work with Canon through our partnership. One of the businesses I'm a partner in is called Socality. We do creator events kind of across Canada and beyond. And so work really closely with Canon here in Canada, producing a lot of, just really, really great events with them. And then the other like business that I'm involved in is called House A31. It's a basically creator and founder clubhouse right downtown in Calgary. We had picked up this old, like 100 plus, like leased this 100 plus year old house right on 17th Ave, which is, right in the heart kind of the social district in Calgary. And back right at the tail end of COVID. And it's gone through like a couple iterations. This is sort of our second business model with the space. And we had relaunched it almost a year ago, actually. So basically a physical space and then the creative community with Socality are the two businesses that I'm actively involved in. And then, photographer, been doing that for probably 11 plus years. And then been passionate about writing basically my entire life. And finally this year, jumping in a little more on Substack and trying to do that a bit more finally. So, I mean, I'm sure we'll circle back to some of that, but that's I guess what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Sounds
and
like
some of the,
you're busy. Yeah.
So
you got your hands in a lot of different pots.
Yeah.
How did you what inspired you to get started on these other businesses? So you started as a photographer and then you started this creative community.
Sort of. So Scott Backen is my business partner on Socality, and he was actually the one that founder started all of that literally 11 years ago or something. And it just so happened that he had started cooking up this idea to kind of bring all these creative people together about 6 to 8 months before I got involved. I knew him, but it was through some mutual friends that were like, hey, Scott's working on this thing. I think it would be up your alley. They're trying to plan an event, all this stuff. And so I just started showing up in like an early, almost like volunteer team to help make this like creative conference kind of event happen. And the community was sort of launched right around the same time. And then honestly, probably 6 to 8 months into that whole journey, we were just doing stuff and a team sort of formed, and it just sort of seemed like our skill sets kind of the time about like worked well together. I think I was just wrapping up like an MBA actually as well.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
so I had like some of the business side and before we knew it, we were like incorporating the next year and just kind of, it was like mainly the two of us based out of Calgary that were doing it. And so one thing kind of led to another. We kind of joke, we never actually really formally sat down and were like, we're becoming like partners and doing this. It was like very just sort
Yeah.
of like
It
one
just
thing
happened.
led to the next. And that was also, I would say, my photography journey started a little before that, but that was really in that process that took me like
Mm.
fully into it because we were just surrounded by all these creative people. Instagram was kind of popping off. Um, all that stuff was kind of happening at once. And so those two almost happened in parallel for me. Yeah.
Tell me about these events that you put together. How often do they take place? What is the format for it?
So they've evolved over time. Early days, they were very literal, like instant meetup style. We would just like pick a spot and kind of put it out there and be like, "Hey, we're meeting at this coffee shop and going for like a photo walk or
Yeah.
showing up here." And then like there's a bunch of people would show up. Now with the like things have, I'd say, just gotten a lot more organized and structured. Especially the ones we do with partners like Canon. So those, um, they're they're usually in a space that maybe people wouldn't have access to, or and the goal is to kind of give people an opportunity to both create something. So there's almost always some sort of styled areas and or something unique, and then with the Canon element, they'll bring a whole bunch of gear so people could try all the newest like Canon stuff. Lately, we've done a lot of print activations too, which has been really cool to see. So like usually you can show up and get like a large format print made of like
That's
one of
cool.
your shots. There's like little mobile print stuff where people can get like 4x6 prints like framed
Oh,
and walk away
neat.
with that. So just a very unique mix of kind of live activations with community. And the goal is, it's a bit of a choose your own adventure. If you're there to just hang out, connect with other creatives, people can do that. If they're there and they're early in their creative journey, it's a great opportunity to capture stuff and create stuff that you wouldn't otherwise maybe have
Oh,
access to.
totally.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, it like truly, it's a full spectrum too of who comes out. We get people from kind of all ages, all backgrounds, all sort of skill levels, which also makes it, a really like unique kind of experience. So,
Oh, I'm sure. How many
yeah,
people are attend these?
they range, but those bigger ones are kind of anywhere from probably like 120 to like 250, like 125 to 250
Wow.
kind of thing, depending on the venue or the size of the space. But yeah, they're quite large. But because like we've kind of designed them so that they can be a bit more of a larger gathering point in some of those cities, and then allow the smaller meetups and things to kind of fill the gaps for people in between.
Do you travel with these? Like, do they go city to city or is it mostly in Calgary?
No, so our events are like the ones we do in Canada are Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, and Calgary.
Mm.
And so those kind of like major cities. And then if, we've done, I mean, over the years, stuff in the States and elsewhere uh, as well. So it's definitely like kind of all over the place. But post post COVID, it was definitely, just with everything that happened, I felt like we got kind of pushed more and like
Yeah.
into Canada, just with all the travel stuff. But it's been cool to see community members and people hosting things of their own in different cities. Again, yeah,
Oh, that's cool. So is there a cost involved?
yeah. The all of our like creative experience events are very affordable. Like we usually have like a $10 cover, or something like
Nice.
that. Literally they used to be free, and we added the price entirely because I don't know if you've hosted events before, but we always find when you make them free, it's like so many people sign up and then maybe
Don't show.
40% actually show up. So
Yeah.
we found that when you put a small price on it, it just increases buy-in and commitment.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's, yeah, the goal is to be as accessible as possible though, so that the price isn't an obstacle for people to come out.
Yeah. And how often do you have them?
There's probably something happening almost every month outside of like the summer, but it'll be just in different cities. So this year there's like a few more in Ontario. We only had one in Montreal this year, and then a couple in Vancouver, one in Calgary. But some years past, it kind of varies. There's like a lot of smaller stuff people are doing as well, but the big ones are a little
Yeah.
less frequent. Yeah.
How can we learn more about it? Like, is there what's the Instagram?
Yeah, people just head over to at Socality, Socality on
Okay.
Instagram. It's like we usually do a lot of like Chloe definitely posts a lot of little roundups, and you can kind of see stuff, like get a little taste from some of the events, and usually we'll share. Yeah, the Instagram's pretty good for finding like keeping up with like upcoming events and some of that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
then we also just jumped onto like moved our email list over to Substack recently. So
Okay.
we've been kind of putting a lot more effort over there. So that's also a great place where we kind of building out like a biweekly, yeah, like newsletter that we send out to the community, and been indexing events and building out a bit more of a Luma, like using Luma to build a calendar as well to kind of index community events as well. So
Oh, wow.
still a lot of stuff that's been like in process over the last year to try and put a bit more infrastructure around everything. But yeah, those
Yeah.
are a few spaces. I'd say the email
Okay.
and social are great to kind of keep up.
Is Substack, is that gaining popularity? I feel like I've heard about it a lot, but I don't know much about it
Yeah.
actually. Like what is it exactly?
I mean, on the surface, I would say it's an email, like an email platform, similar to say MailChimp or like those. That would be at the very surface. But once you dig a little deeper, what sets it apart from, I'd say, like a typical email, kind of like management tool, is they've built a full app actually that has a whole social element. So you can post what they call notes on there. That's very similar to say like a Twitter feed or X, I guess
Mm,
now, or threads or something like that. So there's like a bit of a social element, but you can
okay.
also like find like basically build a whole blog page pretty much, that indexes all of your email. So it's a very unique hybrid of like running an email list, but editorializing it,
Hmm.
to make it a little bit like having a blog as well. So it's like almost like a one stop, if you're wanting to write more or kind of build a
Hmm.
bit of a audience, send out. So then if you subscribe, they get, your most recent posts or your,
I see.
um, and then at the same time, anything that you've published in the past, if somebody finds you for the first time, they can go back and read all of that.
Mm,
And so then even in the app, it's very designed so that you kind of have a feed, like a reading list,
okay.
subscribe to everybody, kind of have all your, in a cool way, it's like have a space to kind of have all your newsletters or everything sort of in one feed in one place. And
Oh,
then
wow.
for creators, what's also great is they've built a monetization feature. So it's designed a little bit like a Patreon or any of those. So you could add a premium like
Okay.
subscriber
Subscription.
element.
Yeah.
So if you want to monetize your list, then you can use it to
Hmm.
add like a free and paid option as well. So yeah,
Okay.
we haven't dabbled yet in the paid side of things. We're just using it right now to just um, for all the other features. But it also is really great from a comment, like like your emails essentially have a whole comment and engagement space.
Mm,
So,
nice.
it also just creates a bit more of a two-way conversation from
Yeah.
versus just, sending out an email blast and having no idea like who saw it, who engaged with it, if they have any thoughts.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has been picking up though. I've been really seeing a lot more notable kind of writers, creatives, entrepreneurs hopping on there in the last little while. So it does seem to be, yeah, picking up steam.
And so have you been doing that personally, like a Substack for your own writing as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, ironically enough, I probably, writing's the creative discipline that I think I've probably had in my, like, way before photography. It's been something like even growing up, always as a kid was, whether it was songwriting or writing little stories or,
Hmm.
that was always a kind of a core creative outlet. And so I think, but I probably, like many people, it's like when there's like a deeper love for something or you hold too much identity to it. I think
Hmm.
I found photography got easier because I didn't identify as a photographer, so it was easier to
Mm,
fail. It was easier to just like put stuff out there, try. And
yeah.
so in a kind of unique, I don't know, interesting way, it's like I got really proficient at photography because I had zero identity attached to it. But
Mm,
I think the writer in me always like identified, maybe I identified more with it. And so therefore was more afraid probably to do anything with it or put it out
that's
there or
interesting.
ship it. And so I think finally in this season, Substack's been a really kind of safe way, almost similar to how Instagram or social media is for photography or for content, where you're like, oh, it's just a post. Like, just, it's not,
Hmm.
kind of a safe way
Take
to
the
just
pressure
start.
off.
Yeah, just going, you're not writing a book. You're not
Hmm.
like making some masterwork. Like, you're just sending out one idea or one collection of thoughts. And
Hmm.
if it's not quite it, that's okay. You can do another one. And
Yeah.
every repetition, in the same way that we get better at photos or videos or any sort of creative discipline, it's like each time you do that, you get a little bit better. So I think
Hmm.
that's been the approach for me, is just trying to coax that writer out by maybe de-risking it. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
the way you
Yeah.
write the book or do that big thing is by writing the small thing and shipping that and then doing that again.
Hmm.
So
Right. Just kind of
yeah,
showing up
yeah,
and whether it's good or bad, just kind
yeah.
of building that habit and just building the like confidence in yourself
Hmm.
almost to pursue it. What kind of writing are you most passionate about? Is it different every time, or what is most inspiring for you?
Yeah, I think I'm always. I think I've got this like. I mean, I consume a lot of, I would say, like personal development, like, or work around creativity and how we change and how we grow as humans, and so I think some of that writing probably translates there. I think it like a lot of what I lean into is just like the lessons, the things I'm learning and applying and trying.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's, I mean, I think the last one that I published was literally just about. My like what a personal quarterly offsite looked like. So how I'm trying, I've been trying to apply this idea of every quarter going away and doing a bit of a review and and like walking that out. So I've been, in a lot of ways just using this space to share almost like my own experiments with trying to be more in flow more than I'm distracted, and walking that
Yeah.
out and applying those things. And some of it's very practical, some of it's a little more just inspirational.
Yeah.
But I would say the core theme is like creative living and how we do that better, how
Mm,
we yeah. And I think my probably a driving question for me is like, I have this hypothesis that like we can be kind of like this river metaphor almost, that like there is is kind of that like being in flow and we can
hmm.
kind of drift out of that or stay in it. And so
Yeah.
it's this pull to go, I guess my driving question is always like, what are the things we need to do in life that bring us back into the flow, keep us in that river, which is where we're most creative, where we're most aligned, and so I think that's kind of a driver or the core questions I'm asking that then informs the work.
And so what are some of the answers that come up for you staying in flow?
That's a good question. Natural. I think there's a couple. I think so much of the drive for me started with addressing burnout and realizing that, like, I think a lot of creative people can relate to that. It's like, whether it's like you fall in love with something because your curiosity was piqued, and so all of a sudden you chase that, you get drawn into it, and then before you know it, you become proficient at it, and as you grow, there's this tendency that I think I talked about, like, you find some identity in it, and that's okay. But then without fail, if you don't find a way to, I think, build a rhythm of rest and coming back to, it's like, I guess in a lot of ways, it's funny that your podcast is called like Artist Date. But like, I don't know if that was a reference to like the
Yes, it was.
Artist Way and some of that, but it's like, I mean, such a huge part of, like her whole kind of, I don't know, just core values or whatever, like comes back to that, like having those outlets to, whether it's morning pages or the Artist Date or those things, right? Kind of like come back to really tap back into your curiosity. And I think the problem is if we don't, and then it becomes a job, like we basically, art and creativity becomes a job when we become good at it and other people want it from us, and we build identity. So you can get in this burnout loop where you're stuck, you're creatively like uncomfortable, you're dissatisfied because you kind of hit a like a plateau. And so, one kind of thing that I've been really leaning into is just that, how do we build curiosity back, like come back to that curiosity and on a more regular basis. And some of that's been for me, like capturing that, like allowing myself to capture those moments where I'm like, what if I did this, or what if I could create this, or like the sparks that probably start our journey, but we drift so far from once we become known for something. And I think the other one, obviously, like similar in that vein, is just so much for me. It comes back to like, I think grounding ourselves and like rest and days off. And I think, just like there's a lot there. But that's a big one. And I think too often I'm guilty of it. It's, I think, trying to do prioritizing everybody else's, whether it's like clients or like family or friends, or everybody else's needs and the priorities above our own. And I think there's this need to, I was literally actually just journaling about this morning, but there's this like need to find that line of almost like conscious selfishness. I don't know if that makes sense, but where it's like, you can't live a meaningful life and do big things and create lasting change, whether it's in your life or others or through your business long term, without like absolutely flaming out if you haven't dealt with your own issues, like met your base needs, figured out how to like pay your bills, like sorted out your body and make sure that you're like healthy and well. And but I think so often we, for whatever reason, end up in these loops where we're lopsided. We're sacrificing our well-being in pursuing something or other people's priorities, or whether that's like clients or a job or whatever. So I think that, a big thing that I've been just, I think, leaning into lately is this idea of like solving your own problems first and try like, and more completely, and before necessarily trying to fix everybody else's or fix if you're in it for the long haul. I think that like I think people can see a lot of success in the short run without facing that stuff if you just double
Right.
down and lean in. But I've just seen too many people then 5, 10 years down the road absolutely flame out, even though it looked like they had already achieved a whole bunch of success and so to me, it's about the long game. That's
The slow
the
burn.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually recognized a lot of younger people wanting to, they feel like there's this time limit. Like if they don't hit their goals by 25 or 30, or, that they feel like they're a failure. And so like having these, we almost feel like we need to have that overnight success, or especially with like the consumption of content, and like we're pushing ourselves so hard to like make it right away or like quickly, and we feel like we need to. But really, you're so right. Like you have to prioritize yourself and your body, and basically fill your cup up and like think about it in like a long-term goal and like plan versus like this short-term sort of goal attainment. And I think that is what does cause a lot of burnout. I've fallen into that myself. It's like, oh, I want to make this much money in this amount of time. And so I'm going to like just work my ass off to do it. But I've hit burnout a lot by trying to like push myself to achieve like these really tight, I guess you could say, like timelines, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated because it's like there's absolutely those seasons, it feels, where like you have a vision or a goal and things like momentum's building, and there's this like feeling like I have to seize it or I have to jump in, and it requires a lot of you. And but then the risk always feels like if you're constantly living in the like all or nothing, where you have to push so hard that then it requires this like extensive recovery period to then rev up to do it again. That also doesn't feel super sustainable, right? And so I think a lot of it's just asking that question, like, how do we smooth those? There's always going to be pushes, and there's always going to be those, like that cyclical kind of nature to life. And especially if you're an entrepreneur where like, you're not just working a day job or something that's like fully laid out for you. Like there's going to be problems and things you face and and seasons that require more of you or less of you. And but yeah, I think it's what we do for ourselves to balance, to smooth that out, that then allows that to become easier and less like where we're less reactive. But it's a journey. And I think and the hard part is it's unique a little bit to all of us, right? Because no two creative people are the same, or people in general, right? So what your needs look like and what mine look like are going to be a little bit different. And so I think that's what's cool about stuff like conversations like this, or, podcasts like this, is you actually get to tease that out a little bit with different people. And each one of us is going to relate to somebody else's journey a little bit different, right? Or a little bit more to one person than the next.
Let's circle back to, so tell me about when you first started photography or picked up your camera. Like what inspired that?
Yeah, I've got a good, like a story I like to kind of reference on like where that all kind of began. I grew up like doing a lot of skateboarding and snowboarding and like board sport. And so, and that was literally with like I'm trying to remember which tape it was, but it was all the little like mini, maybe like mini DV or whatever, like the little camcorder, like all like on tape. And I think, most of it was more, More video, but like as kids, my dad was really into photography. More so just loved documenting like family and moments and that kind of thing. So we were the kids that were always like, Dad, like not another photo. Like we just, um,
I can relate.
yeah.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, I think it's really ironic that all of his sort of passion for it then went full circle. And it's like, I'm just like laughing that I'm like a professional photographer, like years
Yeah.
later after being the kid
Yeah.
that was like, nah, like, why?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, so I mean, like, I think because of him, like, it's like we had, usually, like, I still remember we had like little film cameras like as kids, and like he would, if we were out, like we just shoot stuff. And I mean, fun fact, like kind of crazy like story, like anecdote, but I actually, so right as we're talking, like the Edmonton Oilers are in the Stanley Cup finals against Florida. And so Edmonton's goalie, Stuart Skinner, um, he's the son of like one of my dad's like close friends. And like I would have been super young. But I actually have a photo that I took of Stuart in goalie equipment that me and my brother had decked him out in some of our like street hockey stuff. And he was
Yeah.
probably like, I don't know, 3 or
Oh my
like
gosh.
tiny. And I'm pretty sure, like almost without a doubt, it was like the first time he ever had like full goalie equipment on. And I just took a photo of him, and I don't know why, but we
Yeah.
must have just had these like little film cameras and my dad must have given us. So we had like just randomly took a photo of him. And to this day, it still blows my mind that like
Yeah.
I now am a professional photographer, like doing all the like Canon stuff and all these things. And he's
Yeah.
literally like NHL goalie. And in that
Wow.
moment, like he was wearing goalie equipment, I was taking a photo, and it's like flash forward, and like both of us are doing that professionally. Who would have guessed that that
Yeah.
would signal like, I don't know, like some semblance of a career down the line.
That's really cool.
Anyways, just random anecdote that came to mind. But like flashing forward like a lot more, it was like probably 2011. And I had like just picked up like a Canon 60D or something like that. A friend had recommended it as like something that could do photo and video. And was in Cambodia actually volunteering with like a few friends. We were like, I don't know, just at that age where we're like, we want to make a difference and like
Yeah.
travel and do all this stuff. And we were in Cambodia. And I remember like having the camera with me with this like kit lens that zoomed out to like 200 mil or something on a crop sensor. So like quite long.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and seeing this like young girl in this like t-shirt, almost like wearing this big t-shirt like as a dress, and she's standing by this wall and almost like blending in because the t-shirt was like so dirty, and she just kind of like blended into this like cement wall. And I just remember like snapping a photo because I was just kind of photographing like people on the trip and just different things, and then looking at it later and just feeling like, whoa, did I take that? Or almost like this sort of wow moment of like that looks like something from like National Geographic or some, not something that, I don't know, some very amateur like
Yeah.
person just on a trip took. And
Right.
I just remember it kind of, like stopping me, and standing out. And I think that was the first moment maybe where in my head, it kind of like clicked that like, oh, I can actually, like I caught that and it carried emotion and told a story, and like asked questions. And there was all of these elements in that one moment of this girl, and like, who is she? Where, like, what's her story? Like, I don't know. And so, yeah, I think that was probably like the aha like moment, but
Yeah.
I didn't really act on it outside of just, continuing to lightly dabble if I traveled or did any of that. And then it wasn't really until, getting connected with Scott and some of these other friends and people around me a few years later, where then I fully went like down the rabbit hole, and then got kind of drawn into like adventure and lifestyle and all of that, outdoor kind of stuff just really was like a byproduct of finding community and connecting with people, and more so than even like a love for the image necessarily. And then I felt like I just fell in love with the craft a bit more as I feel like as I got deeper and as you like got more proficient. But yeah, definitely like kind of an accidental path. Like never once I think did I ever say like, oh, I want to be a photographer like when I grow up, or this is a path that I like want to choose.
You.
It found me for sure. Yeah.
When I was doing a dive on your Instagram, it's so beautiful, by the way. And everything like fits so nicely. It's like looking at like a beautiful magazine, and I really appreciate that. And I'm so curious how like you managed to do that. And I also noticed that you incorporated like a lot of like, I would say architectural elements into your portraiture. Like it's like it's a stunning foreground.
Yeah.
And then also the background is just always very interesting.
It's interesting. Yeah. I would say separate from any like editing or like coloring, which I think that just sort of developed over time by trying to be consistent and hone in like a bit of a color palette. But the common threads are usually like, I love the intersection of people in space. So it's interesting that you like mentioned that, but I think a lot of people are great portrait photographers or just capture people really well. But then a lot of times that's like closer up, or it's, I don't know, like traditional portrait photography is usually like 50 millimeter or 85 millimeter or these like closer focal lengths. And somewhere along the line, I just really fell in love with like portraits at a wider, like I do shoot closer up, but I shoot probably 90% of my work with a 35 millimeter prime lens. And so that also creates a bit of a stylistic look and feel because it's always wider. Like I'm not shooting with a I don't know, like a 50 millimeter at like 1.4 or an 8, like where you're getting tons of bokeh and kind of knocking out the background. I feel like the background and the scene for me is like part of the story, and it's like this storytelling element, and it's part of what makes I don't know. I find it that for me, I'm not a great like director, to be honest. If I work really well with subjects and people that I can just like direct into doing things and being involved in the scene so that I can work on just documenting it. Essentially, it's a very kind of collaborative process where for me, I'm looking at framing and trying to use the scene to like capture a very unique composition. And so I love working with somebody who is almost co-creating that with me, where they can be almost an actor or a participant. And then my focus is on how do I utilize that space or that scene to enhance that.
Well, that's really interesting because you're almost like this illustrator through your photos, and you're also a writer. So maybe there's a book in your future or something.
Yeah. That's been something I wanted to do for years. So definitely, it's just been, I think the challenge in a lot of cases is like, I've said that to people before where they're like, oh, like, what would you, or then the minute it comes up, it's like, well, what would the book be about? Or what would you write? And I think that the challenge has often been because again, people probably that are also multidisciplinary, it's like you can maybe relate, but when on one hand, I'm like, I could literally do a photo book and be excited about that. But then I also love like words. And so then it's like, but I could also just write something that's just words, or then it's like, but I could also mash them together. And so I think, I don't know if you can write, but I think sometimes the danger in also having all of those different tools is it can be a little overwhelming and then you don't do any of them, or it can, like, if you're not careful, you can very much just get kind of, stymied in any direction because you could go any direction, it's like, oh, we could do this or this or this.
Totally.
And so, but I think that's been the Substack journey or those kind of things. It's simplify it, right? It's like a book's in there somewhere, but we're going to start by publishing
Right.
small, small things with words and dropping a few
Exactly.
images in, and then
Yeah.
iterate and then
Yeah.
see, and then, um, grow from there.
Yeah. It's best not to force it. It's like when it's ready to happen,
Hmm.
just like how photography found you.
Yeah.
It's almost like that book or that project will show its face when you're ready.
Yeah.
It's like you know it's part of your journey, but so you feel like you need to make it happen, and maybe it will take longer to get there because it's not the right time, you know? So
Yeah.
I think it'll happen for you
Yeah.
when it's right for you. How did you become a Canon ambassador? Tell me about that.
That's kind of funny. So it's like, um, it kind of comes back actually to our whole journey with partnership with them, like through Socality and in that frame. So when we goes back to 2019, and they had, like, Scott was doing, they didn't have an ambassador program actually at the time. They had a couple different kind of programs. They had something called One to Watch actually at the time, and it was sort of this like program where they were profiling kind of up and coming creators in Canada. And so
Hmm.
Scott had been on that team, and another friend like that I knew, that two of them were both picked for that, and they were in that kind of group. And then the Canon team had reached out to Scott because we were doing all these events, and they were like, "Hey, like, love what you guys are doing. Would be very interested to see if like we could do something, or like
Hmm.
support an event, or be involved, or work together in some ways." So I remember Scott looking at me and being like, "I think this is like pretty big. I think we should fly out to, like, instead of just having a virtual meeting, like, I think we should book a flight and go to their headquarters and like meet them in person and
Nice.
like talk through this." So we did that. It just so happened to be the day of the Raptors parade, of the year that they won the championship. So
Oh,
we're literally
amazing.
flying into Toronto like on the day of the parade, and it's like so busy. And lucky we're like leaving the city to go to the HQ in Brampton. And I still remember it just like kind of a surreal experience because like I mean, I got into photography. My first camera was a Canon. I was still like have never actually shot anything else. And so kind of surreal to have been on this journey, kind of, where you're like, okay, we just went from this to this, and now we're literally
Yeah.
like at the headquarters of a brand I like got started with.
Yeah. That's cool.
And so, yeah, so long story short, I mean, the outcome of that was we started like worked out a bit of a partnership and started to do event stuff with them. But part of our pitch was, hey, we've got like a group of photographers that would be like, we'd love to have almost like a Socality, like Canon ambassador team. And we kind of said it
Hmm.
was like me, Scott, and like there's going to be like three others. And we were like, can we work out something? It's like, we'll like, yeah, in a way, we were almost like designing a little mini ambassador like program that didn't
Right.
exist.
Yeah.
And they were like, yep, that's cool. Like, let's build that into the plan for the year or whatever. And then literally COVID happened. So then like everything was in flux.
Yeah.
But in the midst of that, I think kind of in 2020, then they started talking about building more of a formalized ambassador team. And then they're like, well, we've got you guys on this like sort of like partnership ambassador thing that we did with you. Can we just move everybody into the like main ambassador thing that we're now launching?
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and so it's kind of funny because I think to me, it's a great example of being available and actually, from like a brand standpoint, actually meeting like real needs that a brand has. And then
Hmm.
I think loyalty and showing up, because I don't think I mean, it's like, I can recognize that my work is good, but there are so many different people across the country that shoot Canon that I could make a case for that would be great ambassadors or would be, and I think the lesson I learned from that whole process was just how big relationship is, and
Mm.
showing up and being, and loyalty, I think, because I think one of the things I've seen most with a lot of the, between camera companies and all these different things is how fluid a lot of people are with like hopping between all these different brands. And there's a case to be made. I get it. There's like a business for a lot of creators. And it's like, if they can't get paid enough or it doesn't make sense, they're going to go where the opportunity is. But I have seen, like, at least in our relationship with the team there, just the value of loyalty and consistency and building together. And so roundabout, but it definitely was through just what we were doing. And
That's
then
really
building
cool.
that partnership and just throwing out the idea of something that they didn't have. And then that thing eventually becoming an actual like program or an actual thing within the company. So, yeah.
And what does it mean to be an ambassador for Canon? Do they provide you with equipment, or is it like a paid sort of ambassadorship?
So I think it's a little bit unique to each person. Like, ours is unique because we've basically built, like, we have our own partnership with them that we've built out on an annual basis. So it's kind of funny. I feel like our relationship as ambassadors is still kind of fully baked into our, like, the work we do. It's all kind of muddy because it's like we're partners with them on the business, and then as that we're also working as ambassadors. So, but so I would say we're, like, both Scott and I are a little bit of a unique case in that sense. But it's actually, like, very, I think, dependent a little bit on how, like, on the individual, but we do get some gear credit and ability to, like, and then they involvement in some of their programs and different things. And, so I think, like anything, I think everybody's always, it like evolves year to year, and as things change, and with big companies, it's like there's always different goals, and priorities. And but I can say it's been they've been great to work with, and it's it's been an honor just to even, I think, as somebody who, like I said, started out with a brand, to, like, easy to take it for granted, but to kind of go full circle and get to show up and kind of work with that company on a regular basis.
Totally.
It is special. What
do you use? Like, which camera?
So I just upgraded this year to the R5 Mark II. And then I'm still shooting my favorite lens, which is that 35 Mark II. Like, that's still the EF mount that I've had since my, like, DSLR days.
Nice.
And I think just so much of my style's been built off that. Like, I've tried the new, even their new, like, L series, RF like 1.4, and it's nice, it's beautiful. But I think there's still been this, just, like, I don't know, like, nostalgia and attachment to the one that I've shot. So, but it's, after the R5 launch, that was kind of a game changer for me, from a, like, it felt like things grew in, like, leaps in terms of what the cameras could do. So it's been,
I use the R5 as well. I'm just on their first edition, but it is. Is it much different? Like, is the new one much different, the Mark II?
You know what? I truly actually haven't had that much time, even over the last couple months, like, since I got it, to even really, like, put it through the paces, to be honest. I think from a video standpoint, that's where a lot of the, like, big improvements came on this one over the like, the first generation. But I mean, it is a unique thing, because it's like the R5 was such an amazing, like, camera from a photo standpoint, that I still remember, even when they first released, I was like, man, I don't really have a lot of complaints here. Like, there aren't really like some immediate thing that I would fix or change necessarily from a photo standpoint. But I'll have to come back to you when I get to, like, I think the one thing is the autofocus is even better.
That's what I've heard.
Not that, I mean, the R5 already felt like such a a leap from my
Oh,
5D
totally.
Mark
The Mark
IV.
IV. Yeah.
But yeah, even on top of that, it's gotten like pretty crazy where like you can be tracking something that's like going behind a building and coming out the other side. And
It's amazing.
I think
Yeah.
it's just across the board wild to see how much the autofocus stuff is
Yeah.
like improved over the last few years. So yeah.
Makes our job so much
Yeah.
easier.
Well, then you can just focus on what you're capturing, not on trying to make sure it's in focus.
Yeah. What's next for you? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's a good question. I think on the like one side, I think just continuing to play the long game. I'm a big fan of like consistency and showing up. So I think I'm excited to see on a couple of the businesses just what consistent progress leads to over the next few years on those. But I think on a personal, like creative standpoint, some of the things we've been talking about, like a book project and some of those, like I'd love to, manifest some of that stuff over the next few years and kind of carve out a bit more time to, I think, put out a few more larger projects, and I think it would probably, take shape like that.
If you were to give one piece of advice to someone that's just starting out as a photographer, what would it be?
On the like creative side, I think the number one is just like put in the reps and don't like let your fear get in the way. Like shoot and ship it, like and just repeat, and then trust that if you do that for a year or 2 years or 3 years, it's like you will grow. You will like almost like the results are guaranteed if you are willing to just get the reps in and then ship it or publish it or put it out there and then repeat. But then I think I think the other side of that though kind of arcs back to where we started on the subject of like burnout and all of that. It's almost like to start that process of building your recovery systems and dealing with your inner stuff and your traumas and your past and your issue, all of that earlier, so that then those are not things that you're trying to face or deal with when you become successful or when it does work because you stuck with it, but now you're a bit exhausted and everybody wants more of your time. And, so I think it's kind of twofold. It's like deal with your stuff sooner than later and like get healthy to face all of that. And then just, it's actually not rocket science, like creativity really, when it all, I think it's that latter side that gets in the way of all of because if we weren't questioning and self-sabotaging and doing all of that, the act of just showing up and making stuff and putting it out there and then doing it again, it's not actually that complicated, but it's what's in our head and all of the other stuff that stops us from doing it. Right.
Yeah. The creativity can be the easy part, and that what's going on in here is the hard part.
Right. Cause just doing the thing we love or like following our curiosity isn't in fact that difficult. That's actually, I think, a very human, natural thing. I mean, like that's who we are as kids. It's a very default kind of wiring. So it's like almost, I think that's something I'm going to be like, I think writing about and working, like publishing over the next couple months, actually. It's a whole series on just like, how do we clear all of that stuff? Like what's all the clutter that gets in the way and blocks that flow and blocks our ability to simply do the most fundamental creative act, which is just show up, make it, ship it, and do it again.
It's such a collective feeling. And we don't talk about it nearly enough because we think we're all doing it alone, or it's just us that has this issue. But no, we all go through it. So I can't wait for that. I'll buy the book.
Oh, thanks.
Just send me the link. Nice. Thank you so much. I love this chat. I could chat with you all day. It was great.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find you and get in touch?
Definitely Instagram's an easy one. It's just my first and last name, Jonathan Zoeteman, Zoetman, on Instagram. And then definitely like find me on Substack. If you like head over there. I think it is also just my first and last name. Uh, and you should be able to, find me there. I've got a website, jonathanzoteman.com, but it is definitely a little bit outdated. So we need a few updates there. But yeah, those are the personal stuff. And then absolutely check out, if you're a creative, check out Socality, at Socality on Instagram. And yeah, come out to an event if you're in one of the cities that we're going to be in this year, or just follow along and send me a DM. And we are working at also just trying to get more creatives in different cities empowered to host stuff themselves. So I think that's a huge push this year, is less reliance on us to necessarily like host something in your city or in your area, and really, just trying to aggregate more of the the community stuff that's happening so that people can find each other. So yeah,
I love that.
That's the stuff.
And that's a wrap on season 1 of Artist Date. What a season it has been. From late night recording sessions at my kitchen table to deep, soulful conversations with creatives around the world, every guest, every story, and every message from you, the listener, has reminded me why this podcast exists. To hold space for honest creativity, and to remind you that you're not in this alone. A huge thank you to Jonathan for helping us close this season with such wisdom and care, and to all the guests who have shared their hearts and insights over the past 25 episodes. We'll be back in September for season 2 with more stories, more lessons, and more moments that leave you feeling seen, inspired, and ready to create. Until then, I hope you take time to rest, reconnect with what lights you up, and maybe even go on a few artist dates of your own. We'll see you soon.